I had to go in military service then, and then you start to work in the corporate world. The corporate world is based on subordination, and it's like a boss who says go to the left, and you do as I tell you. It's like,
Yes.
but so for me, the corporate environment for a lot of people who started out in the corporate world, it was very tough. For me, it was totally easy. For me, it was like, in the word, I already had a boss who, well, he cannot help that, but he looked like a bully, and he was a very big guy, and everybody was afraid of him, and I was like, it's nothing compared to my father. So it's like,
Wow.
I was not afraid of the guy, and I just said what I did, and I was like, well, compared to my father, it's really nothing. So it's like, I thought, oh, it's pretty easy. But where's a lot of these new hires, they got to adapt to that situation. And for me, it was like, oh, this is pretty easy.
Mm,
So I made a, what they call a career. I was rather what they call in corporate terms successful because of that. And they let me do all kinds of stuff that nobody else could do. That's what I did. And then I had the same experience like yourself. I got kicked out, and then
Welcome to your Wordless Podcast, the space where we redefine success, self-worth, and transformation. I am Nick Nieras, the soul-centered architect of transformation, helping you unlock your highest potential and build a legacy beyond limits. Now, whether it is self-mastery, career breakthroughs, or wealth creation, this is where change begins. Now let's dive in. Are you stuck in a job that you don't love, feeling like you're meant for more? It is not in your head, it is in your soul. I am Nick Nieras, and I help high achievers like you break free from burnout, rewire self-doubt, and build a life aligned with purpose through coaching, hypnotherapy, and soul activation. Because let's face it, real wealth isn't just about money. It is about aligned and happy heart, mind, and soul. Now, remember, you are worthy and you are enough. Let's transform your life together. Visit www.thenicknieras.holisticlifestyle.com to begin.
think I never grew up as myself.
Love that. We went straight in. Okay. Yes. Yes.
I grew up as the son who my father wanted to see. So, well, that's what I call fitting in. Fitting in is living someone else's life, and it's essentially meeting expectations of other people. And in my case, it was my father. So I really, well, I didn't know that, but it took me more than 40 years later to recognize that I grew up as an image of someone else rather than myself, because I and billions of people, I would say, they grow up as what their parents want them to be, as the people in their spiritual community, in their religious community, in their bosses, their spouses. We all grow up in a way that we are totally disconnected from ourselves.
Why am I nodding? It's because I too was a victim of that. In Asia, we are often told to study super hard. And I think many parts of the world study hard, get the job, get the money, and then have a family, and your life will settle by itself. Obviously, life is not linear like that. And I too, I bought into that narrative of if I'm not good enough, if I'm not proving something, therefore I'm not worthy of receiving the love or the respect that I seek. Now, there are actually two problems with that statement already. I am trying to prove something, but at the same time, I'm expecting for something in return as well. Now, and I love this topic, Arnold, and that is also the reason why I think you are one of the best people to help break it down for us. So what was your pivotal, no, what was your backstory, first off, before we go into the pivotal moment or maybe moments? Your backstory from why do you say you have to conform to your dad mainly? And then suddenly your society.
Well, again, it's like I didn't know that there was another way. And as a child, you're dependent on your parents, yeah, for food, for shelter, for everything. Yeah, well, you're not in the situation if you're 5 years old to say, "Bye, I'm going to take care of myself." Well, in that sense, you're kind of in a prison. So it is constantly trying to meet the expectations of others and being someone who I am not, who you are not. That's not only with me. I live in an apartment building here, and just a few days ago, I go on a very early morning walk, and I got back at an early time, and I saw a lady coming out of the elevator, and she was typically going to work. Her face, I hadn't seen her before. Her face, I could see, is like, it totally looked like, and I realized later, it's like a mask, full of makeup, full of lipstick, and everything is like she's going to work. She's put on her mask.
But I'm wearing makeup. At least a little bit of it.
Think about that. Yeah, so
Okay.
it is like you put on your mask of, in this case, the lady you're supposed to be at your work. Hmm? So, but that is not necessarily the person you really are. But you don't know, because from the moment you're born, you are in that situation where you have to meet the expectations of others. Think about it. When you were born, when are you a good kid, a good baby? When you don't cry, when you eat your food, when you don't spoil your food, when you don't make noise when it's not supposed to. Yeah, so it's really the moment you're born, they already try to mold you in a certain way. And that continues, if you're not careful, for the rest of your life.
But it took you 4 decades. At least it, I don't want to say, I mean, your situation is worse than mine, but I think something within me said, okay, Nick, enough is enough. And I realized that by after 15 years of being in a 9 to 5 job, I was like, okay, this is not really working out for me anymore. I thought that the climbing the corporate ladder was my ultimate superior goal in life until my own trauma happened. I got laid off and my divorce happened. And so I was like, okay, I suddenly something within me sparked. Like I wanted to help people. So that's another story. That's my story. But you took 4 decades. And what were those moments? And finally, what built up until you said, excuse my language, F off, everybody, I'm going to start living my life.
Yeah, well, it's like, so I had my upbringing, and for your listeners and viewers, my father was a military officer. So, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and well, some of them, they can be very kind at home, whereas they're different. But my father was at home worse than at his work. So, that is the family in which I grew up. But then you go to school. The school is also a system which is based on subordination. Uh,
Yeah.
then yeah, well, I did go to university. Kind of same story, but I liked going to university because I lived in my own apartment and no longer at home. Yeah.
That's also the reason why I left home at 17 because my dad used to, yeah, is a reserve officer as well. So his way or the highway growing up. So I can resonate with
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so for me, it was like great living on myself in another city.
you. Mm.
It was really great. So I really love being at the university, and I worked part time as a trainer coach as well. Then in sports, well,
If the answer is yes, visit www.thenickneurosholisticlifestyle.com and grab a free hypnosis audio of these common struggles. It's a sneak peek into how my coaching works.
I had to go in military service then, and then you start to work in the corporate world. But the corporate world is based on subordination, and it's like a boss who says go to the left, and you do it, do as I tell you. It's like
Yes.
But so for me, the corporate environment, for a lot of people who started out in the corporate world, it was very tough. For me, it was totally easy. For me, it was like, in the word, I already had a boss who, well, he cannot help that, but he looked like a bully, and he was a very big guy, and he was, and everybody was afraid of him, and I was like, it's nothing compared to my father. So it's like,
Wow.
I was not afraid of the guy, and I just said what I did, and I was like, well, compared to my father, it's really nothing. So it's like, I thought, oh, it's pretty easy. But whereas
Mhm.
a lot of these new hires, they got to adapt to that situation. And for me, it was like, oh, this is pretty easy. uh,
Mm.
so I made a, what they call a career. I was rather what they call in corporate terms successful because of that. And they let me do all kinds of stuff that nobody else could do. So that's what I did. And then I had the same experience like yourself. I got kicked out, and then I'm like, now I want to start my own business because I dislike bosses. I don't want any bosses anymore.
Yes. And ooh, I love that. Sorry. So you said from home, father was like this, but then your boss was like, but you mentioned that this is nothing. So you kind of still agreed to, I guess, submit to the hierarchy, right? As you're building your career. And I want to ask you, at the point where you said that I'm going to start my own business, what were the things going on in your head? That's number one. Number two, did you repair the relationship you had with your dad?
Well, yeah, your first question is around when did you realize you want to do something else? It was a negative choice, and I'm
Mm,
the year 2000, which is totally different than now. Huh?
that's right.
With startups and being entrepreneurs and all these words didn't exist in 2000. It wasn't there. But the only thing what I knew is like, I'm totally fed up with bosses. I don't want a boss anymore, and I want to try doing my own thing. I took a coach then, and I was ranting to him, but because he was like, Arnold, what do you want? And I was, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this anymore. And he was, yeah, Arnold, I understand. I understand. But Arnold,
What do you want?
tell me, what do you want? And I had no effing clue. I literally couldn't say a word. And it's like, I was like, huh? What do I want?
I can ask that?
That was literally the first time in my life someone asked me, Arnold, what do you want? And I was totally flabbergasted. I was like, describe what you want, how it looked like. And I'm like,
Uh, You're so okay. Was that the time you started your brain gym?
no, that was much later. So after that situation, I got out of this world. And then for me, a whole new world opened up. I said I was pretty successful in the corporate world, but outside in like emotional, spiritual, the physical things, environmental, social, all these things. And I was like, I thought I knew a lot, but I knew nothing.
Oh, that was very powerful. You thought you knew a lot, but you knew nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, why have I never heard about these topics? And I'm not I'm really in essence a generalist. I'm not a super duper specialist in one tiny little area and who knows everything about that area and doesn't know whether it is raining or sunny. I was very broad in my perspective from a corporate point of view. But outside of that, I was like, motion, how does that work? Spiritual. What is that? Guys with beard and gray socks and the look and I had no clue. I had no clue. So it's like I I was extremely curious and I was like, I want to know. I want to know. How does this work? How does this work? Yeah, so I did courses, I did workshops, I read books. like whatever. I really want to dive into, for me, a new world.
So I guess that was the first time you went into the space of psychology, mental health.
Absolutely. Well, you could say that mental health, but more particular mental illness, was the family in which I grew up. Because I would say I have a brother and a sister and a father and a mother. By now, I think they would all be diagnosed with a mental illness, but not during the time when I grew up. Yeah, that didn't. Yeah. Well, so those words didn't exist. The doctor didn't know these things or didn't want to address them. So it's like but that is the world in which I grew up. They were totally dysfunctional. And then, yeah, being about psychology, I already, when I'm this year 50 years a coach, 50. I started as a sports coach in the Netherlands, and so I always had to work with psychology because you have a team of people you need to train, you need to coach, whatever. So for me, it was very natural to use psychology to apply the principles of coaching because I'm like, I'm going to do the opposite of what my experience is at home. The experience at home was totally authoritarian, even totalitarian, and I applied it like, what's my vision? How would I like to be treated? Let me treat the people who work in my team, whatever, in that way. And that was extremely successful. And that's why I made a career in the corporate world. The psychology part has been implicitly, not explicitly, a part of what I'm doing because I'm like, yeah, well, if you want to hurt me and say, Arnold, you look like your father.
Have you
Yeah,
ever had that comment?
no.
No. Hey, means you're successful. You did not replicate your father.
Yeah, so it's like, so that is, and that continued after that. Is like, yeah, I noticed that, to give you an idea, I managed from 10 people to 6,000 people. So I had wide responsibilities, but I always look like, is what they say, like management is this, you got to do this, whatever. Is like, I thought, no, that's not the way it works. People are all wearing these masks. Everybody, whether it's formally with your makeup and everything else, but men, the same thing. Their mask is a tie and a suit. That's their mask. And it's like, no, it's not the words what they express. It's not what they do. It's like what is beneath that. I always use the metaphor of the iceberg. It's like you see the top of the iceberg, but that doesn't determine the direction of the iceberg. Yeah, that is the wind and the current, and 9/10 of the iceberg is below the water, and you cannot see it. In a sense, it's the same with humans. People just express what they're expected to say. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, of course, Arnold, I think it's a great idea. And the moment they're at home, it's like, well, it's a shitty thing. I had to do this and this and that. So it's like, that is why I say it's like, you need to understand the psychology behind it because the expression is not the intention. The expression is the part above the water, what you see. Oh, it's an iceberg. You see it look like. Yeah, but your intention could be like, well, I'm going to say yes, otherwise I'm not getting a promotion, or my boss will be pissed off, or whatever. But below the thing is like, I need to start looking for a new job.
So where do you come in this?
I come in with people who are at that point in their life where you were, where I were. They're, I call it midlife, and it doesn't matter. It's not age related. You've been in the corporate world, and it can be an SME, or, because everywhere it's the same. Or they keep telling me if I do my work and I get good grades and whatever performance, that I will get promotion and then I will get extra money. Like they told you, like, oh, you got to get married, you got to get kids, and then you work and then you retire and then you'll do nice things. That's a lie. It's a narrative which is not true. So I can help people who are in the state where they start to realize is like, I did my best at the work. It's already clear by now that I'm not going to be the CEO.
That was, yes, that was my That was me. Is that I aim to be a partner, but it's clear that I am going way off track from becoming a partner. So
Yes,
this
so
is not cut out for me.
that part, but it could also be that you realize you got health problems. Yeah,
Hmm.
people have addiction.
Yeah.
And then the people who, well, early in life got married, get children, and they're like, well, their marriage is not as exciting anymore, and they got a lot of problems with their children. Yeah. By the way, many children have mental illnesses, or at least they defined as mental illnesses, whatever. And they're like, everything didn't work out as they told me. And they're like, what should I do now? That's where I,
Okay. So say a client were to come to you right now, what would you how would you work with them? Like what's your typical onboarding process and your coaching journey with them would be?
well, I coach one on one with people who want that, but because I want to reach more people, I have a training program now, which is an online training program, which is 15 weeks, where I have 15 sessions of 90 minutes where I go through what I call the 6 steps of my brain fitness training, which is number one, reveal. And reveal is what we've been talking about so far. And I reveal basically the cage in which we operate, and that you are in a cage, and that people put you in all kinds of straitjackets. They're invisible straitjackets. I had them as well, most of them. So that's why I identified. By now I've identified 35 different straitjackets. They're invisible, but they limit us in everything, in their life, in our work, in our relationships, in our health, in everything. The first step is reveal. The second step is recover. You need to recover from that people use you as a slave, that people use you as, in our case, your and I, as a soldier, but not as a unique human being with its your her unique expression. But you also need to recover from the fact, and that's true in your neck of the woods as well as in mine, and it's like we're constantly supposed to suppress our emotions, and we're so good at it that we don't even know that we're doing. So we got to start listening to them. They're like, what are they? How are they? Yeah, so that's the recovery process. The next step is to reactivate. Reactivate mostly not the mental capacities, but emotional, spiritual, physical, environmental, and social capabilities, which we all have, but they're suppressed, ignored, irrelevant, whatever.
Yeah.
Then we got to reset. We got to look at the world in a different way. I wear glasses, and well, let's say they're transparent glasses. But if suppose my glasses were orange, then I would say, oh, the whole world, everything is orange. And now I have to put in green glasses. Like, oh, the world isn't orange anymore; it's green. So we got to reset our perspective. And the next step is to relearn. There's so much which you don't learn at school, at your education, at work, which is like your mindset, well, about technology, knowledge, experience, a lot of things which we got to relearn. And then the next step and the last step number 6 is to recreate communities, cities, countries in the way we would like.
I'm curious, what was the journey like for you in all those aspects besides your work? The spiritual, the social, the environmental.
I am fortunate to be very curious. So I I dove headfirst in all these topics. Hmm? So to give you an example around spirituality, I didn't know anything what it was. I was never engaged in, nobody talked about it. I didn't know. But already quite soon I got involved in a Indian organization called the Brahma Kumaris, which is in India very, very well known. Got millions of students, and I got to the Dutch centers, and well, after a few years, I became a teacher. As if I was a spiritual teacher,
Wow. Congratulations.
and then later on, I I was part of they do a lot of social activities and around how to deal with the environment. So I was part of the international team to set up this environmental initiative. So I was at climate change meeting in Copenhagen and in Germany and everywhere. So from really being a no-no, I got into, well, I really get into this world. I gave meditation classes in India with hundreds of people in the room. So it's like, yeah, it like, and again, if you would have told me 5 years earlier, I would say you would totally crazy. But like, but that shows it's not for me. It's not to show off. It's an example of like, if we dive into something, you find it interesting, and we commit to it, we can do and be basically anything.
And I want to talk to you about neuroplasticity. I know I think we are touching that surface a little bit. What is neuroplasticity, Arnold, and why should it be our strength? Some people don't know we have that.
Yeah, it's an essential question because, and it means that your capability to learn and adapt is your brain can constantly learn and adapt and grow. Which most people, at least until I believe 98, until 1998, 85% of the people, 85% of the people thought is like, after you're 2025, you cannot grow, you cannot learn anymore. That is just the way I am. How many people have you not heard telling you that? That is not true. That is totally not true. That is why neuroplasticity is such an important word, because it debunks that things that, well, after you're 21, no, you won't grow, you won't learn anymore. That's the word. No, you can learn, you can grow, because neuroplasticity means is that you can form new connections between the neurons in your brain. It's like, hey, I didn't know that this worked like this, and it's like, oh, you can form new, you can learn something new, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. It is like, so it's like all of these things. Are like you can grow and learn basically until you die. And that is why neuroplasticity is so important, because most people say, no, I cannot. But everyone can grow and learn until your old age. But you have to keep on practicing it. You have to keep on applying it. It's the same thing with your brain as it is with your body. If you don't use your left hand for a month, and after that, you cannot immediately do everything with your hand. It's stiff. You miss some functionality and it doesn't work. So you got to train it. You got to train and apply, and then maybe it takes a few days, maybe a few weeks to that it is operational. But the same thing happens in your brain. If you stop using it, if you just like, that's my life, that's the way it is, then number one, well, it, it becomes very hard to reactivate again. But if you continue learning and growing, whatever, it won't stop. Like, you can just continue on like forever you want. If you're 85, whatever, well, it made a deep impression on me, Nick, is that I was once visiting my uncle, and he was a professor at university, and we were visiting him, and there was a lady at the door, and she came in, and whatever, and she was a lady in her 90s, and he introduced her that she was his PhD student.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
I had the same response as you. Is like, well, that shows that even if you're in your 90s, you can still study for your PhD. And so it's like, it doesn't stop. It's only if you think you cannot. If you believe you cannot, then it won't. If you believe you can continue.
That is the message that I want to leave people with. But first, Arnold, what is digital dementia?
Well, most of people, I would say, are addicted to the smartphones. They're ready when they walk to school or to work. You see now people walking on the street, they walk with this thing in their hand. It's not even in their pocket. They walk with the thing in their hand. And so people are completely addicted. Digital dementia is a state of sadness, depression, lack of or total focus on instant gratification. You cannot memorize anything. You lose your critical thinking. You cannot do so. Your brain starts to, well, not physically shrink, but like a lot of things where you were capable of is now no longer the case because you basically are not challenging it. In order, like that lady which I said, which doing their PhD, you gotta have challenging complex things for your brain to work on and not just doom scrolling on TikTok. It's like you need to work it to give it challenges rather than do the thing. If you don't do that, you get this digital dementia, and there are millions and millions of people who have had a brain fog also. Yes, it's like it's really really awful, and that is. And now with all these LLM, these AI tools, where yeah, like ChatGPT, Copilot, or Gemini, and I've been saying this for years. Actually, is that it diminishes your capability of using your own. There's now a lot of studies. Actually, in the last few days, I've seen many studies from MIT to very very noteworthy institutions. Is like if you let all of your stuff be written by ChatGPT, you lose your capability of writing. If you let everything do every calculation like 3 times 4, you don't know what it is, and you use your ChatGPT, you lose your capability of mathematics. So that's true with anything. So and that's proven now. So that's why I think it's so dangerous, because it like, well, from naturally people are lazy. And it's like, if you start using these, that's why these tools, people love to use them because they're lazy. So it's like, oh, I use it. But what they don't realize is that it really diminishes your capability.
So how should one balance then between their, with the tools and having your own essence?
Well, the main thing is that you still need to challenge yourself. So in the writing case, it's okay. Is let start to write the first piece yourself. It's like, well, this is if I have to write it, this is how I would write it. Then you could feed it in the system. It's like, hey, where can I improve? Then you can learn. Where the main thing, well, basically the only thing where I use it for is for research. Is like, I wanted to understand is how many people are there in the world with a midlife crisis. Normally, if I was a marketing manager a long time ago, I would ask people, and it would take them a couple of weeks, and then they would get back to me. But now it's like, I would ask the system, and first it came up with midlife crisis in the US. I said, no, I want it global. Okay. 10 minutes later, those cases are really useful. But I know what to ask the right questions because I was a marketing man. So I have
Yes.
the knowledge to ask the right question about what my target market is defined. And then it's very helpful. Well, I'm now diving into a world which is outside of this dimension, what people call around extraterrestrials and all that stuff around that. And I really like with anything, is like I knew nothing about it. I didn't even watch Star Trek or how these movies. I never seen that movie. So it's like, for me, it's a total new world, but it's very relevant to the work I'm doing. So I'm diving into that. And then it was like the space arc this, and there was an interview, and the space arc this. I have no clue what that is. So I type in research. What's a space arc? In those things, it's very useful. But for anything, I write everything myself. I already get people asking me, is it, Arnold, did you write that by yourself? I just finished writing a small booklet, which is called Tales of Transformation. And it's a 3-part book. Arnold, yeah, you wrote it, but did you check? No, nothing. Everything is written by me.
Raw. Oh my God. Okay, Arnold, I really love talking about this topic, but I cannot help but ask, so how should one be authentic? How can we stand in our own power?
It's a decision. I don't like using the word authentic. Talk for half an hour. Why? But it's like authentic means is that somehow we know somebody who we were before we went to school and everything else we did, but we don't know. Like I said, from the moment you're born, you're not yourself. So to be yourself is like, I want to make my own decisions. I want to make my own choices, and I want them because my heart, and I emphasize that again, where my heart says yes. We have, in essence, three brains, Nick. Most people don't know that. We have our head brain. That's where people, when they think about brain, is like, this lump of fat under your skull. We also have a brain. And this, I'm not making this up. There's scientific evidence for all that. We also have a brain in our gut, and we have a brain in our heart. And the most impact, the most frequency goes from your heart. Right now, as we speak, I'm literally training. There are exercises which I do every day to train to listen to my heart, because I didn't know about that. I know about my head, yeah, which are always your thoughts.
And it has kept
Uh,
us alive for so long.
Yeah. I know about my emotions, which, well, I no longer, but I used to suppress, but there's something, they're there, whatever. So but my heart, your heart is an inner, very positive inner voice, but your head and your gut make so much noise that you don't hear it. So I'm using a couple of exercises which are from the book The Heart Method Solution, which I highly recommend, and I'm doing these exercises to listen to my own.
Okay. Few more question. What does it look like listening to your?
It's very confrontational.
Okay. An
It's
example?
confrontational in the sense that it is weird that something which hopefully will be the most important voice in your life, and I most of the time, and I never heard it, I never recognized it. That is already confrontation in itself. And what is confronting for me is that, and recently, I'm really, I'm just living by myself, and I'm crying a lot the last few days because I realize that I've been so unkind to myself, so tough and unkind to myself, and never listening to what I want, and always like, no, it's got to be work, it's got to do, I got to read this, I got to know this, I got to know. Let me give the example which really made me cry is that the books I've been reading for the last 25 years are around psychology, self-help, consciousness, everything. So when I'm reading, it's not to relax. When I'm reading, it's because I want to know more. I want to learn more. But I just realized that when I was a kid, I read a lot of fiction books. I loved it. I went to the library and I loved it. But that's when you go to school, you have to learn all these literature books. They're boring and you have no clue where it's about. And I'm from the Netherlands, so I had to read in German, in English, in Dutch, in French. Look, by that time, I totally lost my appetite for reading. And then fast forward a couple of years, it's like, no, I wanted to know about spirituality, to know about this, I wanted to know about this. Neuroscience, yeah. Just the fun for reading fiction. Just to, well, get drawn into a story. And I'm like, I didn't allow that to me, to myself. I was so tough on myself because, hey, I need to know this. I wanted to know this. Hey, I'm the brain fitness guy, so I need to know these things. But it's just nice. It's fun. So there, that's made me cry is because I was not kind to myself. And that is what most of us are. And again, that's been taught from a young age. We're not kind to ourselves. And I'm learning by listening to my heart is like, no, it's okay, Arm. You can have some time to relax and do something you like.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And thank you so much for being so honest and vulnerable and transparent with me, Arnold. Okay, what is exciting right now that you're doing? What are you working on currently?
I'm even thinking about, I just mentioned that I've written a couple of nonfiction type of books. And my last Tales of Transformation is where I use a fictional story to get my message across. It's a well, I think in total not even 100 pages. I try to keep it small. So That is it. But now I'm even thinking about to create time to write purely fictional, but use it in a way where everything what I've been talking about is to express it unmasked. Yeah, so just to express, so it is like the main the protagonist is a person who just expresses his or her feelings with and just say what he thinks. Yeah, it's like I mentioned, it's like I saw this lady out of the thing with a mask. It's like, oh, what a nice mask today. Yeah, so it's like something like that. Yeah, but that is just an idea. But it's like I want to use fiction writing to express my own thought and to help people seeing that. So I think I'm moving in that direction. The other thing where I'm moving into is that I identify, well, a couple of brain states. The traditional state they're fitting in is what I call a brain sickness. It's a sickness which most people have. Then the next stage is brain fitness, where you start to live your own life. Brain elite is where you say, hey, I want to contribute more to the common good. And I'm now working on the next stage, which not even the name is final, what I call beyond, is that there's so many things outside of this very small, tiny dimension in which we live, which influences this world. And so researching and seeing is like, how do we need to relate to that? Because it influences everybody and everything.
Keeping your mind sharp and challenging yourself. I love that. Okay, Arnold, what is next for you?
What is next for me is to also give myself time, I think, to deal with regret or grief about that there's so much in this world, so much, yeah, literally in this world, which is not true. What they have been telling us from as a young kids, or whether you're at university or at work, whatever, I would say 90% plus is not true. And that creates me a lot of grief. Is like, hey, what I know now, I wish I knew that when I was 20 years old. So I have to well, I am accepting that, but I'm like, I have to deal with that grief at the moment, yeah? Because I also feel anger, I feel betrayal, because it's like those all these elite, all these folks, they're betraying us with everything. So it's like I gotta, well, settle that. That is where I'm currently working on. And while at the same time, and as more on a positive note, it like be more kind towards myself.
Arnold, I'm gonna pivot to a self-worth question because my podcast talks a lot about self-worth. So the question for you, there's no right or wrong answer to this. How would you define self-worth before and right now?
Well, we haven't mentioned the word we all think we're not good enough. We think because, well, probably in your upbringing and, well, for sure in mine, everybody I speak to, everybody has that feeling, is like, I'm not good enough. That is one of the main subordination strategies to make you do what other people want you to be. Self-worth is like ignoring what the whole world outside of you tells you about what you are, what you did wrong, whatever. Your self-worth is like, no, I know I'm working hard. I know I did my best. And all of the things which people said about me and say about me, like, I don't care. As long as I care about myself.
Yay! I got nothing to add to that because that was brilliant. What is your heart's greatest wish?
My greatest wish is that brain fitness becomes equally important as body fitness. So now I have to explain a lot what it is, because people haven't heard about it, doesn't exist.
Yep. Yep.
But it's my wish that now, if I say to people, have you heard about body fit? Yeah. And it doesn't, you don't need to go to a gym, but you can play tennis, you can go swimming, you can walk your dog, you can bike. Yeah, doesn't matter. But I hope that in a few years, people will say, hey, no, it's combined brain and body fitness, and they're both equally important. That is my big,
You know, when you were saying that, somebody should come up with heart fitness too. Maybe that should be your next act. Who knows?
Yeah,
That's a good
absolutely.
one. Okay, Arnold, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening in the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Live your own life.
Well, there you have it. So how can people reach out to you? How can people reach out to you if they want to know more about your work?
My website is called braingym.fitness. Gym.fitness. And they can find a master classes, which are 90-minute videos where I talk about various topics like curiosity, relationships, your uniqueness, your emotions. So those are around specific topics which you can buy. And the other is the 15-week training program from fitting in to flying out. They can also find that on the website. And if they still got any question, there's a link to my agenda, and they can book a meeting with me and we can discuss your question.
Awesome. So, Arnold, any last message to our listeners or anything before we wrap this interview up?
Yeah, so you asked one quote, but actually it's a series of three. So number one is live your own life.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is learn continuously. And the last one is love yourself unconditionally.
Thank you. Thank you, Arnold. Wow, that is a wrap, I guess, on for today's inspiring episode with Arnold Beekes. Thank you, Arnold, for the work that you do, for continuing to uplift the world and the people around you. For our listeners, this has been Your Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, if you've ever found yourself worthless, you are not alone. Your soul chose to be here, to matter. And for that reason alone, you are worthy. A huge thank you to you again, Arnold, and to all of you for listening. Until next time, I am Nick Nieras. Keep shining, keep growing, and always remember you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you, Arnold, for your time. Love this episode? Now, transformation doesn't end here. Head on to at holistic.lifestyle_with Nick. That is on my Instagram. Or head on to my website, www.denise.holisticlifestyle.com for more info on my coaching framework, which is the Worthy, Authentic, and Abundant Framework, digital guides, and my upcoming events such as retreats and master classes and workshops. Now, I also do intuitive readings where we get to check on your soul path. And if you're also wanting to check on your energetic alignment, I have done that too. And I offer that kind of services. So, my question to you is, are you ready? Because I am. Let's make your together. Good afternoon to you, Arnold. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, I would like to say thank you very much for saying yes to be interviewed and for you to come on my show. I'd like to introduce myself to you formally and to all of our listeners tuning in for the first time and our returning subscribers. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, today we're going to talk about mental health illness. And we have Arnold Beekes here with us. Arnold, I'd like to read your introduction to all of our listeners first, and then we can get right into our conversation. Hello, everyone. We have Arnold here with us. Arnold has worked 20 years in technology and organizational leadership, then 20 years in psychology and personal leadership. And hopefully, the next 20 years, he intends to alleviate suffering with brain fitness. Now, his why is to reverse that people are robotized and robots are humanized. His unique approach is based upon unconditioning. Now, most people cannot use their potential because they are limited by mental and emotional straitjackets. They're overwhelmed, feel not good enough, and are not making a difference. This brain sickness is the consequence of living someone else's life. You can dismantle the straitjackets by unleashing and using your uniqueness. Brain fitness trains you to live your own life. Your well being, performance, and creativity will significantly improve. Now, Arnold enables professionals and managers and entrepreneurs to make a difference in this world. Welcome to the show, Arnold.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Arnold. All right. I like to take my guests and my listeners a trip down memory lane. Can you share with us, first off, what was it like growing up as yourself?